Honorable Minister Kainga, distinguished guests, good morning. I mean, for those who stayed, the coffee break is happening right after this conversation.
Before giving the floor to our chair, allow us to introduce the session. As the African continent grapples with a new generation of complex and interconnected threats, ranging from violent extremism and transnational crime to governance-related tensions and climate-induced insecurity, Southern Africa is also called upon to reinforce its contribution to continental peace and security. While the region has traditionally maintained a strong reputation for stability, emerging challenges are testing the limits of existing mechanisms and requiring renewed political engagement. This conversation will explore the strategic role of Southern African leadership in shaping and operationalizing the African peace and security architecture. It will examine how the Southern African development community, alongside national governments, can further align with APSA's core pillars, early warnings, preventive diplomacy, peace support operations, and post-conflict reconstruction, while upholding the principles of subsidiarity and regional ownership. Special attention will be given to how diplomacy, cooperation, and institutional coordination can help translate commitments into concrete impact on the ground. In what ways can regional leadership evolve to address emerging security threats more effectively? And how can greater coordination and political will transform existing peace and security frameworks into real impact on the local and continental levels? Khadija Ahsan, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this thorough introduction for our conversation today. And before kicking off into the conversation, I suggest you take out your phones and go on the APSACO application and answer, please, to this question, just to get your perspective on the biggest threat you think that is, as of today, that the Southern African region is facing. So what is the biggest threat to the stability in the Southern African region? In one word. As you answer, allow me to briefly introduce my distinguished speaker today. So, Honorable Deputy Minister Kainga is instrumental in shaping the foreign policy and strengthening diplomatic relations with bilateral and multilateral partners, and her political and leadership journey includes serving as a member of the parliament from 2014 to 2019, during which she played a key role in advancing gender equality and regional cooperation. I mean, I can tell more about her very extensive experience, but I think we have our answers for the world cloud, and allow me to introduce the session also with some facts about Malawi, so known as the warm heart of Africa. Located in the southern Africa, Malawi is landlocked, sharing its borders with Mozambique, Zambia, and Tanzania. The country's estimated population is around 22 million. Honorable Minister, you can correct me if some of the data is not accurate. On the political level, Malawi has enjoyed sustained peace and stable governments since its independence in 1964, and one-party rule ended in 1993. On the economic stance, 80% of the population of Malawi relies on agriculture, and that's where we have a little problem related to climate change. As you answered in the World Cloud, frequent climate disasters and other exogenous shocks have exacerbated challenges, making it difficult for poor households to build resilience. Inflation is expected to remain above 30% due to a weaker agricultural recovery, according to the World Bank, which estimates approximately that a third of the population are expected to face crisis-level food insecurity if nothing is done, especially due to the impact of Cyclone Freddy and as of limited fertilizer availability. So, Honorable Minister Kainga, based on these facts and to the responses we got for the threats to stability in the Southern African region, what is your reaction to these?
Thank you very much. As where I'm coming from, Malawi, I think the main threat could be the climate change. It has brought a lot of shocks to our country because they cannot be predictable. And we have gone through the cyclones, especially the Cyclone Freddy, which has left most of the population in dire need of food and even shelter. So climate change always hit us hard because it's something we do not prepare about it, we do not see it forthcoming, it just comes. And there is need to put up ways and mechanisms to make sure that at least we lessen the impacts and we get prepared in time to make sure that these shocks do not automatically or totally engulf us in a situation whereby we cannot come out and keep on growing economically.
Speaking of mechanisms, and this question's been repeated through all the panel discussions, almost all the panel discussions of this conference, do you think that we are able to aspire to African solutions for African problems? Because are we able to build our own mechanisms to respond to this kind of threats?
As a continent, as Africa, we aspire to come up with solutions which are hitting us hard. And it's good that Africa has to come together to make sure that we have come to a point whereby our own challenges are addressed in a proper manner. You know, Africans, they are the ones who feel the hinge, they feel the impact. So it's good for Africans to come together and know the real solutions to their problems. Just to put in short, we appreciate the external interventions. We really appreciate, but they cannot be sustainable. We need Africans to rise up and to come up with solutions which can better place them in a better position to make sure that the challenges which are facing us on a daily basis are properly addressed. You know, and this requires leaders just like myself to prioritize collective action over sovereignty shields. We cannot grow or we cannot defeat the challenges we are facing daily as Africans if we work individually. We have to come together collectively and address the challenges, because once one is hit, the whole nation or the whole continent is hit. So it's proper and very advisable for Africans to come up with solutions which are going to address the problems they are facing. There is a saying which goes, the one who puts on a shoe feels the pinch of the shoe. If you're not wearing that shoe, you cannot feel the pinch. So it's good that Africans realize that they have the mandate to protect or to address the challenges they are facing daily.
In concrete terms, how can we join hands, Honorable Minister Kainga?
In Africa, we have bodies. We have the AU, which is a body for the continent. We have the East African countries. We have the ECOWAS. We have the SADC. You know, these bodies are there to make sure that we connect at some point and address the challenges which we are facing. So there is need for all the bodies to come together, and if there is need for reforms in the bodies like the AU, we can introduce some reforms just to suit us better, to make sure that we are able to address the challenges we are facing on a daily basis, because we are the ones who feel the hinge of the challenges.
So what you're saying is that the AU, because AU has, in fact, a kind of mechanism, it is a mechanism, the so-called Peace and Security Council, 20 years old, 21 years old as of today, is the main pillar of the African peace and security architecture, the APSA. But there are persistent challenges, and we've heard from the previous panel that these are structural challenges related to this organization, which are mainly operational and of coordination. How can SADC and national governments like yours, Honorable Minister, concretely enhance their alignment with APSA's core pillars to translate strategic commitments into tangible impact on the ground for the populations?
SADC as a body in the region, it has the mandate to keep on engaging other nations in terms of diplomacy, in terms of serious interventions whereby there is uncertainty, where there is no peace, where there is instability. So SADC as a body, it has got that mandate to make sure that it ensures that peace in the region and peace in the continent is well achieved. So SADC cannot work in isolation with other bodies, because we are all interconnected. And as a nation, as a continent, for us to benefit more from what we are putting up as principles, we have to make sure that we are able to interconnect and work together for the betterment of this continent in terms of peace and security.
How can a challenge affecting one country affect or maybe transcend the borders and impact another country, in your opinion, concerning, of course, this region of Southern Africa?
The challenge which can face one nation can spill over to the other, and the impact can even be felt with the other, because we are interconnected, as I've already alluded to. And these disasters, natural disasters, the issues of climate change, which are bringing the unprecedented shocks to our countries, they know no borders. So if one nation is affected, the other one will also get the impact. Because let's say my country, Malawi, was affected by the cyclone Freddy, whereby there was food insecurity, there were a lot of issues coming to make sure that we put things together and we mend. My neighboring countries felt the impact, because they also faced the issue of food insecurity. And also, you know, the issues of migration, they get rampant, they increase, because people sought to go to the next neighboring country to seek refuge. And when one country is faced, the other countries also feel the impact, because you see now the flows of migration, you know, even in our camps, in the shelter, in the refugee camps, we lack space and we lack food, because there is that congestion, because our neighbor has been affected, and that neighbor has to be at least addressed to or taken care of on the situations they are facing in terms of the climate change. So one country is hit, the others also feel the impact, because we are interconnected.
Do you think that the AU mechanisms are aware of this threat enough and addressing it enough, as of violent extremism, for instance, and other security challenges? How do you think, where do you see climate change in the, for instance, APSA agenda?
In the APSA agenda, the issues of climate change, they are already embedded, because these issues, they are not new to Africa as a continent. They've been existing, and they are there, and they're still existing. So AU as a body, we need to have the early warnings, mechanisms, and even responses. The gaps which have been there in responding to these uncertainties, in these insecurities, that gap has to be filled. If, to some extent, if we need some reforms, we have to apply them, because we need to respond as early as possible. You know, when we were hit by Cyclone Idai, there was that delay. So that had left a lot of issues unaddressed within that specific period of time. So as AU, we need to provide mechanisms which are going to give responses immediately at that particular point. Because when we prolong with the responses, then the damage will also grow. So for us to avoid the damage, we have to have early warnings mechanisms and the early responses mechanism, to put them together to make sure that we address the challenges on time. The issue of ad hoc reaction is over. Now we need systematic solidarity to make sure that these challenges are addressed on time.
How about on the government level, Honorable Minister Kainga, what are the mechanisms that the governments put in place to address these, especially climate-induced challenges?
As governments, we need to find out the issues of addressing the food security. We need to have back food storages, even as a continent. So when there is that uncertainty, or when there is that disaster, we are already there, we are already prepared. So as governments, we need to make sure that we are ready for these disasters which come unpredicted and with unpredictability. Yeah.
Since you've played a prominent role in gender equality within your parliamentary, let's say, experience, how about the youth? I mean, I've seen that more than 40% of Malawi population is under 34. And so, first of all, what are the main challenges that are faced by Malawi addressing youth population? And also, what role can youth play in building new public policies, maybe, why not, for addressing contemporary and future threats?
The issue of the youth is a broad issue across the continent. You know, the population of the African continent is about the youth and the women. So we have big numbers in the youth. For us to make sure that the youth are also incorporated, are also brought in to make sure that they take part or they participate in the policy making, in issues which matter most in our continents, we have to make sure that the youth are promoted to participate in political competitions. They also have to find a space in the political scene. And we can do this by promoting them, encouraging them, or coming up with affirmative action to make sure that we have the youth representation in the political arena. We have an example of Kenya, which has got 30% rule. When I was at SADC Parliamentary Forum, there was a policy on youth empowerment. We had endorsed or ratified that policy to make sure that even at SADC Parliamentary Forum, the countries which are the member states should make sure that when they are sending a representation to the SADC Parliamentary Forum, the youth representation has to be there. So that the issue of quota. the youth need to have their own space. Because the youth, they make up, I call it, they make up the present. We are here because of the present. And we are here also because we are looking up to the future. So the future is our youth. So if we address the future, then we will not find problems with the present. So it's very important for us as governments to make sure that we provide a space for our youth. That is in the political arena. Need for affirmative action for our youth to take part. As governments also, we need to empower the youth economically. So at this point, as a continent, we need to make sure that we have put our youth at the back of our mind to make sure that they are empowered economically. There is need for us to create jobs for the youth. Those who cannot go and practice politics, they need to be employed. How do we employ them? We need to find jobs. We need to industrialize. We need to have manufacturing companies. We need to create companies for them to work. Or we can also provide a funding as a continent whereby our youth, after the tertiary education, they should not wait for them to be employed. They can get into entrepreneurship. But where do they get the capital? It's the onus is on us as leaders. We have to create a fund for them to be able to access the funds and then get into entrepreneurship. We also have to engage the youth in the sports activities. I'm glad to learn that my netball team is in Morocco, and Morocco is good at that, the sports and cultural things. So the issues of sports, the issue of cultural exchanges, that would also make the youth at least know that they can ably take part in other activities which are going to make them be busy instead of indulging in the social media platforms and creating or promoting hate speeches or, you know, bringing tension, because some of them, they are illiterate. They need to be, we need digital literacy. We need to capacitate them. We need to make them understand the importance of the social media in a positive way. So as governments, we have to fight hard to make sure that our youth are kept busy in whatever context, in whatever way. But we have to make sure that those who can participate in politics, let us give them space. They need money, they need finances for them to participate, because, you know, politics is expensive in Africa. So we need to create that space. For those who can go through the tertiary and then come back and look for employment, we have to create jobs. It's our business to do that. For those who can go into entrepreneurship, let us create a fund. Even they can have access to the banks. They should get access to the loans even without collaterals. Where do they get collaterals? So it's our mandate, it's our business to make sure that our youth have access even to the soft loans to make sure that they get into entrepreneurship.
As a Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, how can bilateral, multilateral cooperation in support what you just stated in terms of creating a fund and creating job opportunities? How can diplomacy as a multilateral mechanism help individual countries to create more jobs and find good or build better future for their generations?
In a multilateral setup, diplomacy is key, and we need more engagements. Within Africa, we have countries which are more advanced than the others. And these countries which are more advanced or which are growing well economically, they have to embrace and pull up these countries which are lagging behind. So the issue of engagement the issue of diplomacy, the issue of general cooperation is very important, is very key. We have to keep on engaging. We have to know each other's problems and understand them well, and know the way we can address them well. So in terms of diplomacy and in a multilateral setup, it's very key, because we cannot win this battle if we live in isolation. No nation lives in isolation. We have to live as one. We have to live together. We have to share what I have and the other colleague doesn't have. We have to address the challenges my colleague is facing if I am able to do that. So as a continent, we need to engage more. Diplomacy is key. We need to engage, we need to talk, we need to bring issues on the table for discussions. Contact and dialogue is key, and that's our co-founder of the Malawi Congress Party, the first president of Malawi Nation, kept on saying there is need for contact and dialogue.
Yeah, especially with the suspension of some Western development aid to the continent, especially from the American USAID, for instance. Do you think that, and again, I will come back to the first question, that we can build financial mechanisms to respond to local challenges, and in between communities like SADC, ECOWAS, etc.?
Yeah, when there is that hit of withdrawal from the partners or the donor funding communities, it's time for Africa to rise. The borders which we have in the continent, these borders should come up with policies which are going to suit the African citizens better. It's a wake-up call. You know, Africa is rich in resources. Why don't we progress? There should be a problem somewhere. So, as borders in this continent, it's time for us to go back to the drawing table, looking at the situation at hand, and making sure that we find proper ways and mechanisms of making sure that our problems, which are long overdue, are now addressed by using resources within Africa.
Great, amazing. So we still have a couple of minutes before the end of this discussion, and I would like maybe to have your insights about the essential role of cooperation for addressing something like climate change that Africa didn't really create. It's just an impact of over-industrialization and over-consumption of the West. So maybe some takeaways for our audience from you, Deputy Minister Kainga.
As I've already mentioned, that the issues of climate change, they are hitting Africa hard. And now it's time for Africans to rise up to the occasion. In this instance, as Africans, we have now to know our boundaries in terms of addressing issues which are hitting us hard, and the issues of climate change. You know, our resilience as African continent gives us an added advantage to the shocks which we are getting from the climate change. But now, as a body, as AU, or as bodies in the continent, we have to find permanent solutions or permanent mechanisms to curb the issues of climate change. Because some of these issues of climate change are man-made. So, where are these issues coming from? Where are these challenges coming from? We need to address that. We need to address things by the roots. So if we really know that we are getting these shocks from this end, there is need for us to go and address how do we do it better. What is the better way of doing it? Because we can't stop industrialization. We can't stop it completely. But how do we do it better? So there is need for us to find mechanisms which are going to address our problems, but also give us a continent which is safe and secure.
Exactly, and security, food security, is climate change, is also the new way of addressing diplomatic, bilateral, multilateral relations. Again, thank you, Deputy Minister Kainga, for this very insightful conversation. And well, it's got to start somewhere. So I think it also starts with this kind of conversation. Change starts with conversations and this kind of gathering as a platform for exchanging ideas and recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for your attention.